What if I told you there's a way of thinking that's so powerful, it can make things that seem impossible, well, possible? And I'm not talking about a small tweak here or there. I mean, we're talking about revolutionary, groundbreaking change. This is called first principles thinking. And honestly, it's a tool that can completely change how you solve, well, just about anything. So let's start with a question that sounds kind of crazy, right? How do you take something that's incredibly complex, incredibly expensive, and just slash its cost by 90%? It feels like it shouldn't even be possible. But this is exactly what Elon Musk did with rockets at SpaceX. For literally decades, the entire aerospace industry just sort of agreed, yep, rockets are insanely expensive, that's just how it is. But Musk, he refused to accept that. And his secret weapon wasn't more money or some giant new factory, it was a totally different way of looking at the problem. And that secret weapon is this: first principles thinking. You know, at its core, it's about being an architect, not just a decorator. Instead of just changing the paint color on what's already there, you knock the whole building down to its foundation, to the absolute bedrock truths. And then you rebuild a brand new solution from scratch.
To really get why this is such a game changer, we first have to talk about our default setting. You know, the way most of us solve problems every single day without even realizing we're doing it.
So you can see there are really two ways to go about it. On one hand, most of the time, we think by analogy. We look at what other people are doing, we copy it, and we try to make it a little bit better. Maybe 10% better. But first principles, that's a totally different beast. It completely ignores what everyone else is doing. It starts from zero. And that's not where you get a 10% improvement. That's where you get those 10x world-changing breakthroughs.
All right, let's make this real. Let's dig into the SpaceX story and see how Elon Musk actually used this way of thinking to do something an entire industry swore was impossible.
For years, the whole industry was running on this one big assumption that everyone treated like a law of physics. Rockets are expensive, period. You have to buy them from these huge suppliers for a fixed astronomical price. That was it. End of story. It was just an accepted fact. But Musk came in and challenged that assumption with a really simple question. What is a rocket actually made of? And when he did the math, the answer was mind-blowing. The actual raw materials, the stuff you dig out of the ground, that was only about 2% of the final price. The other 98%, that was just the cost of all the people and processes putting those materials together.
And what were those materials? It wasn't some magical, unobtainable space metal. It was just basic industrial stuff. Aluminum, titanium, copper, carbon fiber, things you can actually go out and buy on the market. So the problem wasn't what the rocket was made of at all.
You see, the real breakthrough wasn't about the parts, it was about the system. By just ignoring that crazy sticker price and focusing on the fundamental truths, SpaceX could redesign the entire process from the ground up. They brought manufacturing in-house and, this is the big one, they figured out how to make the rockets reusable. They didn't invent cheaper metal, they built a cheaper system from scratch.
Okay, that's an amazing story for a billionaire building rockets, but how does this help the rest of us, right? Well, the great news is this entire way of thinking can be broken down into a simple, repeatable process that you can literally use on any problem in your life.
Here it is. It's just a 3-step framework. Step 1. Identify your assumptions. What do you believe is true about this problem? Just get it all out. Write it all down. Step 2. Break it all down to fundamental truths. You got to challenge every single one of those assumptions by asking, how do I know this is absolutely 100% true? And finally, step 3. Rebuild from scratch. You construct a totally new solution using only those rock-solid truths as your building blocks.
Okay, let's try this out. Let's apply the framework to a problem that pretty much everyone has faced at some point. How do you get better grades when you can't magically find more hours in the day to study?
So the old assumption, the one we all have, is pretty simple. I just need to study more. But first principles thinking forces us to stop and ask, wait, is that actually true? What are the fundamental truths here? Well, the truth is about how our brains actually work. Our memory isn't like a computer. It decays over time. That's a scientific fact called the forgetting curve. Another truth? Just passively rereading your notes is one of the worst ways to learn. Actively quizzing yourself, what scientists call active recall, is way, way more powerful. So the new solution isn't about more time, it's about smarter time. It's about using short, focused sessions built on the actual science of how we remember things.
At the end of the day, this isn't just a clever trick or a checklist you run through. The real power of first principles thinking is that it fundamentally rewires how you look at the world and all the challenges in it.
So from now on, when you hear someone say, "Oh, we've always done it this way," or "No way, that's just impossible," don't see that as a brick wall. See it as an invitation. It's like a giant flashing sign pointing you directly to a lazy assumption that is just begging to be torn down and rebuilt into something incredible.
So I'll leave you with this. What's the one thing in your life, your work, your world, that everyone just accepts as the way it is? That's not a wall. That's a doorway. That's your starting point. So, what impossible problem are you going to solve first?